I'm going to hit record right now so that we have a record of this so we can send everybody. And Cindy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Vanessa, for inviting me for Tech Tuesday, and thank you everyone for attending this class during your lunchtime. So, what is a project? I'm sure everyone has various definitions, and you have small projects, big projects. You might even have heard the term a mega project. As part of the Project Management Institute, most of the PMO, the Project Management Office in ITS, we are certified project managers, which is a certification through the Project Management Institute, and they define a project as a temporary endeavor. That means it has a fixed start and end date, and it delivers a tangible outcome that is usually used to drive change or create value. So that is oftentimes tricky because timing, people wonder what is a project, it doesn't end. That often gets us down into product management and things like that. But we're just going to focus on projects today. Some of you might be familiar with terms like waterfall, agile, scrum, lean, things like that. But all of those are variations, in my opinion, of kind of plan, do, act, right? And this is the project lifecycle that we follow in the PMO. It's 7 phases with monitor control, which is what the project manager does during the life cycle of the project to make sure that it's going according to plan. If it's not, how do we get it back on track? And that's kind of where Excel comes into play, of how do you track and plan for projects. I'm going to show you actually 3 examples that we use. And the purposes are mainly for sharing an overview, because transparency is very key to monitor and control. And then tracking in-depth tasks. I'm going to show you a more technical one and then a more general one. The technical one being the cutover plan, and the general one being a work breakdown structure, WBS template. And then finally, we'll go over the full-blown project management plan in an Excel format. All of these files are available on the box link shown below, and as Vanessa said, these slides will be available afterwards. So, first one, we're going to go to showing an Excel of how we plan parties. This is an actual party plan that we did in the PMO, and it's quite simple in the sense of showing transparency, right? So the problem here was, how do we plan this? How do we get, make sure people collected the money, what tasks there are, do we need to buy a cake, and how is it done? And we did this pretty simply so that people could see it, so that I, as the party planner, wasn't the single point of failure or anything. It was kind of like a dashboard so people could see. It is formatted so visually nice, you could see the invite, and then we use tables. So in Excel, if you're not familiar with it, you can have a table to have formatting so that if you see there's this little arrow here, I can drag it and then it formats more like that. And then the sum would change as well if I had changed that. So this is one way, a very simple way of tracking different items, right? So then the RSVP, we went from, this is from a copy and paste from the Outlook, and there are instructions on how to do that so we can reuse this in the future. So this is a really simple example of planning. From the, we identified what the needs were. We wanted to get a gift, what the tasks were of the party, and who paid what. So this is a simple thing. I'm sure you guys have seen it in various Excel templates. So moving into something probably more day-to-day work oriented is a cutover plan. So in software development, you actually have to go from different elements and go from development to test to production. So this is an example of that, of a work package description. So this is step 1, and then going to who's assigned to it, the status of it, the estimated duration, things like that. The nice thing about this is that there's a formula here, so that if we change this, say this task takes 30 minutes, then all of that rolls down. And then you can then know exactly when things would change based on that. This takes a lot of effort in identifying which of these items are, but it again goes back to the idea of transparency and monitoring and control to see when something is done, by whom, and what sequence. Here you can see that. So that might be too technical or might be too in depth for a lot of other projects. So here's an example of what I'm calling a basic work breakdown structure. It's just a representation of the different phases that we have that we talked about earlier: identify to close, and just start and end dates, and who's assigned. And that's pretty simple. You can then say if it's done or not, and then go from there. This one's a little more visually appealing. It talks about subtasks within that. It's a bit more granular, so that this is number one, the parent level is a larger task item with these as subtasks. And you can also see the percentage completion. It's more just a visual tracker. You can make 30%, then it goes to 30, and so that you can help see where you are. And the duration again changes, much like what we were saying before, and all that shifts down too. Then last but not least is this one mimics Microsoft Project the most. It shows a Gantt chart. For those who are familiar with Gantt charts, it's a visual line indicator of tasks. This is quite tedious in that it's manually done. But again, you can show if it's 10% done. Then you would have to go in here and change that as well. But this is a great visual representation, especially if you're managing a larger project with key stakeholders that are visually inclined to show the data and show where things are parallel or in transparencies, things like that. I'm going to pause here because I feel like I'm going a bit fast. Are there any questions yet, Vanessa?
No questions yet. So if you want to keep going ahead and showing us more, that totally works.
Okay, great. And then last but not least, we use a project management plan in Excel as well. So this is a holistic listing of all the different bits and pieces that go into project management. So here's a cover page providing the details of who the sponsor is, where the documents are linked, and then also here the different pieces of a project. For example, you have the governance, so who's doing what and it's approved by. Communications, sorry about that, let me click that. So communications, how many meetings does someone have, when's a sender, which frequency. Cost summary, this is where the budgeting happens. And this part is very similar to regular Excel. And the decision log, RACI, which is the roles and responsibilities matrix. So one question that we often get is, why are we using Excel for this? These could be Word documents. These could be, individual PDFs that are collated together. That is true, but because Excel allows the tabbing, it makes it more like a traditional binder, and have this all as a one-stop shop for that. And I'm going to say that was actually, I perhaps talked too fast. I was expecting some questions.
We did get one question, Cindy, about
Okay.
sort of we're answering it, but somebody specifically asked about using Microsoft Project versus Excel.
Sure. So Microsoft Project is very robust, and it's great for doing in-depth planning, and how you can do dependencies. You can have a parent project and sub-projects. The downside is there is a rather hefty license fee. And also, if the person you're sharing with doesn't also have Microsoft Project, then they can't view it. So there's less value in having transparency there.
All right, I think that's it for now. I think people are waiting for the formulas and stuff to ask questions.
Okay. Sure thing. So We can go over, let's see, this one then for formulas. So this one is, we use for this one then is using the design to have different styles for things. So then you can go, sorry, if you go to home, you go to see WBS1 is the parent layout. So that's already pre-indented to the first one. 1.1 is not in bold then. And then so if I hit 3, so it's indented, so it looks like 3. But really, I wanted it as a parent, as a 1.1. And then this one, if I move that, it shows that, but it goes like that. So it's just more visually appealing. Otherwise, it's all just left justified. It's hard to tell which one's indented and which layer it is. So that's how we did that. And so you can create that by going here and create a new cell style. And then once that's formatted, you just save that. So that's helpful if you're creating multiple rows like we have here. Unlike Word, which does that automatic number outline, you have to manually create that in Excel. Microsoft Project also does it automatically, but not in Excel. So that's a con. This is the workaround to that con. So for this one, for the work days, you start, if it's a weekday, use the weekday formula so that it only counts business days. And then the logic is if G19, which is the prior day, if it's also a weekday, and then you add the duration of that, and then this is it. Oops, I shouldn't have clicked all that. It does get finicky if you click the wrong thing. So if I change that date, that changes. So this changed because that, and this change, and sorry, G19 changed because I changed the duration. So that also then changed F20 automatically because there's a dependency on row 19. Any questions about that one?
Cindy, would you mind showing if somebody wanted to look up a formula, like the weekday formula, for example, how they could do that in Excel? Like if they don't recall exactly like how it's done and they wanted to look it up, like how they could do that.
Sure. You can go here, and if you go equal weekday, or if you just remember that, there's these great little hoverovers that I enjoyed using a lot that says, you know, returns a number from 1 to 6, 1 to 7, identifying if it's a day of the week or not. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and then we got, does anyone know how to link deadlines in Excel to Outlook invites? Or can you link your deadlines to Outlook invites?
Not automatically that I know of. There might be third-party plugins, but to me, I don't think there is anything that I know of. You would have to put it in manually.
Okay. If you want to keep going, go ahead, Cindy.
Not a problem. So then from here, this builds upon that, right? So then this has the weekday, how many days, this 40%, and just this color then codes by that. So if I go to formulas, and sorry, and I think it was design. This is what happens when you switch computers. But it's conditional formatting to show if it's 40%, then you show 40% of the row. For the Gantt chart blocks, it is just manual. You just copy and paste. It is very, as I was saying before, it is very time consuming, but it's a great visual, especially if you're sharing this with leadership or you want to show people parallel efforts. This template is not used as much. Most people probably use this one to to show where things are. If you're going in depth into Gantt charts and showing information at this level, then you might want to consider MS Project. Otherwise, it is useful to have the project management plan all in one place so that you can have the governance, the budget. RACI is a great item for roles and responsibilities matrix to show where things are. Again, this doesn't have fancy formulas. It is more about tracking information. So this is also helpful showing, so this one, instead of calling it 1.1, 1.2, this one's template just calls it levels 1, 2, 3, or 5. We go here. Let's say I want to consider 1.6 or so, 1.6. So here is at 1.5 level, but level 5. I can indent it to be 1.6, and then I would create a new cell style based on that. So then if I insert a new row and just happen to be I'll call it 1.7, but it's also at the 1.6 level. If I go to 2, then I go back to 6. So that's really helpful in creating things so that you have this visual indentation. I think that's been very helpful for people for visually seeing the parent and child task levels.
Hey, Cindy, we got a question. Is there a way to link multiple small WBSs to one central comprehensive project, one comprehensive project WS, such that it automatically updates as the smaller WSs are updated?
So that you could do in Excel, but if you're going to be something that complicated, it might be better using MS Project or having them as connecting them through the WBS. So instead of having separate WBSs, this just be phase 1 might be the small project 1, and phase 2 would be the small sub project 2.
Would you mind showing the formatting again of the percent of tasks complete, how you got that to reflect the percentages?
Sure. I go here, I go to conditional formatting. And then if you go to the highlight cell rules, sorry, I should manage rules. So this is the data bar. This is a complex formula to show, well, let me close this out and so you guys can see this formula better. So here's the formula of if it's in the range of if it's the data range, so you can see the F to G, and then where it is in the H, and then you can type, if it's typed in, and then it would conditionally format based on that. Don't worry, this is a formula that I will admit that is often just copied and pasted. So if you guys, when you guys access the template, you can just copy and paste it into your own.
Yeah, and a few people, I know you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, Cindy, but for anybody who came in late, because we have gotten a few questions about it, yes, these templates are available in Box, so we'll send you the link so that you can download them and take a look at the formatting and formulas and see how they are put together.
Are there specific other use case questions that folks have? Give you guys a minute to type it out.
Well, while we're waiting, I know you had on your last slide some contact information if people have questions about PMO training and resources. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Cindy?
Sure. It's listed on the Wild Business Gateway. We do have training on the whole life cycle from an overview of project management into chartering, planning, monitoring, controlling a project, and then closing a project. It is tool and methodology agnostic. We try to just provide best practices. You can just email us at pmo-training@med.cornell.edu.
Perfect. I'm just checking for questions to see if anybody. Oh, I think we got one. If a formula is changed or updated, is there a way to see all affected cells and worksheets?
That is a good question. I don't know that one's answer because I think that is beyond just project management with Excel. I think there's a general Excel question. Unfortunately, I don't know. So if we change that to a 6, you can kind of just, it just visually shows what changed. There isn't, you just saw all the numbers shift, but it doesn't have an indicator saying which cells specifically were changed. If you wanted to do that, I imagine it would have to be a complex macro or for that sort of conditional formatting.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, Cindy, are there any other tips that you can point out from your charts about how you set them up that may be useful for people on the call?
I think one thing that people often forget is to plan the plan phase. I think we're very interested in often just diving into solutioning and stuff. So that could make or break a project sometimes, kind of be measured twice and cut once. So I would encourage people to include that when they draft up a schedule.
Oh, I think I missed a question. Do you have displays or a dashboard for a big project with multiple micro projects?
No, not in Excel. That is something that we do in MS Project with the parent project and sub projects. Also, that goes into then kind of program management, which is the oversight of multiple related projects. There are dashboards for that. ITS uses something called ServiceNow, which has that capability out of the box that helps with it as well. But I don't have examples of that in Excel, but contact me offline and we can brainstorm about that.
Another question that just came in, when planning, what kinds of things do you consider when creating your columns?
Oh, that's a good question. So I normally just do the task number. So we have something to refer to because rows can change, especially if you add a new row and things. Definitely the title, who's responsible, the duration with the start and end date, and then notes. If the task title is too vague, and you don't have the scope of the task tracked anywhere else, then I would recommend adding another column called task description to perhaps say exactly what needs to be done. That is similar to the cutover plan, which had a much more detailed list of what needed to be done within that item.
I don't see any more questions. Just filing through to make sure I didn't miss any. I don't see any more. Cindy, I don't know if there's anything else you want to show, or I can, you know, start kind of wrapping this up and send the content to everyone. But, you know, is there anything else? Oh, wait, okay, no, there's someone saying thank you.
Yeah, if you have any other questions, it is more about project management methodology and using it to just document, which is why the comprehensive overview one might be helpful for folks. Unfortunately, in my experience, no magical Excel formula will help keep a project on track or not. I wish there was.
Alrighty. Okay, well, thank you guys for attending this session. Thank you, Cindy, for going through some of these templates and showing how our own PMO manages the multitude of projects that you guys have every year. Again, to everybody who signed in, I'll be emailing everyone the recording of the session and also the templates that Cindy has uploaded to Box. So if you download them and have any questions, feel free to reach out to that PMO training email. Or Cindy, would you rather it be directly? It's up to you. I don't want to.
Nope, the training's fine. I also received them.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure. All right, perfect. So then I'll send everyone that PMO training email and the website. And then if you have more questions, we have all of these courses available on the Wild Business Gateway that you could take whenever you'd like. So thank you guys so much for joining. Cindy, thank you again for hosting today's session.
Thank you for the invite. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Stay safe out there, guys, with the tropical storm.